Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. In today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about all of the American prelates who have censured or castigated Cardinal Cupich of Chicago, who bizarrely said he wanted to praise and even honor with a public award an abortionist in the Senate. It's bizarre. The most recent prelate to come out and speak out, long overdue censuring of Cardinal Cupich was Archbishop Joseph F. Naumann, the retired bishop of Kansas City. He called the proposal honoring a source of scandal and referred to it as pastoral neglect. I think you could say worse things about it, but I'm going to tell you what the other 7 American prelates have all said. It's good to be heaping censuring upon Cardinal Cupich, who's long been a bad guy, and there's a deafening silence from another source close to Cupich that we need to hear from on his Cupich's heaping praise upon a Nevada senator who's long been an advocate of abortion. He said that giving an award to a Catholic political leader who disregards a fundamental human right, the right to life of the unborn, does not make sense as dialogue. So we're talking about Senator Dick Durbin. Is Dick Durbin from Nevada? Did I say... Maybe I misspoke, but Cardinal Cupich has honored Dick Durbin with like a Lifetime Achievement Award. Dick Durbin is Catholic. And in addition to Archbishop Naumann, we first heard from Bishop Patriarchy of Springfield, Illinois. He's kind of a perennial conservative American bishop that will say something sane or halfway sane. In addition to Bishop Patriarchy, we've had Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Remember, he has come out very strongly against Nancy Pelosi on the abortion issue. Thank you, Archbishop Cordileone. Bishop James Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska. He's kind of usual suspects of American bishops that will say sensible things. There's a lot more these guys could be saying, but on the obvious stuff like abortion, you'll hear from them. Bishop James Wall of Gallup, New Mexico. We've heard from him once or twice. I wouldn't say he's part of the usual suspects. Bishop David Ricken of Green Bay, Wisconsin. I don't recognize this guy at all. Bishop Carl Kemme of Wichita, Kansas. Bishop Michael Olson of Fort Worth, Texas. We have heard from him before. And the newest one is Bishop Joseph Naumann, the retired archbishop from Kansas City, Kansas. During this show, I'll tell you the degree of heat of each of these 8 American prelates and the specific things they said about the bizarre heaping of praise by Cupich upon Dick Durbin. It's just a weird thing to do because it's such a layup to condemn a pro-abortion senator. You know?
We have a super chat. JD said Durbin is a senator from Illinois. Bishop Patriarchy is in the Diocese of Springfield, is quite solid and withheld communion from Durbin where his capital office is. So Cupich allowed Durbin to continue receiving. That's right.
And I'd heard that. I forgot. Sorry about that. Not Nevada, but Illinois. I always got Durbin mixed up with... what's his face from Nevada. They kind of look alike, like a couple of old turtles, those 2 senators. So that's today's show. I'm going to just tell you what each of these 8 guys have said. 4 or 5 of them are decent American bishops that will speak up when the speak up is obvious enough. Now, that doesn't mean we're hearing from the American episcopate often enough or vociferously enough. But still, we want to give credit where it's due. And of course, the sort of 9th and missing place, first off, there should be many more than 8 American USCCB bishops that speak up. But the deafening silence is from Pope Leo XIV. He's an American. He understands things very well. he, of course, comes from Chicago. He comes from where Cupich comes from. He is in that line that Cupich stood in, that exact episcopate, and we haven't heard anything from him yet. That's today's show. We're going to talk about what each of their comments were, how good, how scalding each of these 8 guys came out and spoke against Cardinal Cupich, who is just one of the worst. He's really, really, really bad. If you want to help yourself and your family, the best thing you can do is to be in a place that's a res publica, a place where you are like the other people. And if the other people are like you, parish orphans and retrogrades, then they're really good in my book. They're probably right-wing Catholics that love their family and love God and serve both. To do that, you have to get in a certain place. You can't just be anywhere in America. There are places like San Francisco or Portland or Chicago, New York, LA, where you're not going to look like or act like the people near you. Get out of your blue state, get to a red state, and you will be much more like the people near you, even if the people that call themselves your neighbors are Protestants rather than Catholics. The blood red swath of states from, let's say, Texas to Florida, where I moved in COVID summer, is the best place to make sure you're around a real right-wing Christian. Go to realestateforlife.org. That is www.realestateforlife.org. And it's become a buyer's market as summer changed to fall. So go to realestateforlife.org today, and you will see how much your life can change for the better, and your family's life as well, when you get out of a blue state and get to a red state today. Please support this show. The viewers make it go. The locals make it go. I've lost my Patreon account years back for cleaving to the truth. And when I lost my Patreon account, I lost a lot of the monthly income and never fully made it back when I switched over to locals. If you want to support the show, it's rules for retrogrades / locals. We need the viewer support. So please, $10 a month, $15 a month is great. Now, people write me all the time and they say, how can I donate? Because they know of our kind of striking situation with our firstborn, Abigail, who has high medical bills and insurance bills and things like that. You can donate on timothyjgordon.com or at the P.O. box. People will send stuff all the time. Even you can send letters there. But if you want to support the show, that's different. You get cool stuff in return, unlike a donation. That is through locals. Least of all, please, if you watch this show regularly, subscribe to our channel. We have a boutique program with a boutique audience, and we're trying to make that goal of 100,000 subscribers. Even though the algorithm's against us, we want to hit 100,000 subscribers sometime in the near future. So just hit subscribe and like and leave a comment. Okay? So the real story here, to begin properly at the beginning, the real story is that if we go back in time a tiny bit, that Cardinal Cupich, no shocker, who pretty much always does the wrong thing. I mean, almost always. He had chosen to honor pro-abortion Senator Dick Durbin. I'm reading from the National Catholic Register article from September the 27th by Shannon Mullen. It's called Archbishop Naumann accuses Cardinal Cupich of pastoral neglect for honoring pro-abortion senator. The retired Archbishop of Kansas City, Kansas, a past chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee, is the latest American prelate to publicly chastise Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich for honoring U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, a longstanding advocate of legalized abortion. Here's how the article begins on NC Register. Another U.S. bishop has publicly rebuked Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich for his plan to honor pro-abortion Senator Richard Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award, aka Dick Durbin. In a statement released to the Register on Saturday, Archbishop Joseph F. Naumann, the recently retired ordinary of Kansas City, Kansas, said it is a source of scandal for the cardinal to recognize the Illinois senator in this way, calling it a case of pastoral neglect. Archbishop Naumann is the latest American prelate to chastise Cardinal Cupich for deciding to honor Durbin, a Catholic politician whose own bishop banned him from receiving communion in the Diocese of Springfield, Illinois, at the Chicago Archdiocese's Keep Hope Alive Immigration Ministry fundraising dinner on November 3rd. That is Patriarchy. Bishop Patriarchy did so, as Super Chatter mentioned. Cardinal Cupich has steadfastly defended the move, saying the award is meant to recognize Durbin's efforts to advance Catholic social teaching and immigration, care for the poor, environmental protection, and the promotion of world peace. All of which, by the way, Cupich clearly prioritizes over this obviously more prominent, obviously more black and white, moral, Catholic and natural law issue of abortion. So he's subjugated the more important issue for these less important and more interpretive moral issues. It's very typical of a left Cath, right? Just retarded and obvious stealing of defeat from the jaws of victory. It's very, very clear what's the most important, most pressing, least interpretive issue, the life issue, like abortion or euthanasia. You can beg to differ how much money to give to the poor, how exactly to clamp down on immigration in a humane way, how exactly to go about achieving world peace, only through everyone converting to faith in Jesus Christ, which is not likely to happen anytime soon. But you can't debate abortion will unless you're Catholic Dick Durbin or Catholic Blaise Cupich, Cardinal from Chicago, very close to the last Pope, very close to the current Pope, who stood in his shoes as a Chicago prelate. At the heart of the consistent ethic of life, this is Cupich. Here's that seamless garment nonsense. At the heart of the consistent ethic of life is the recognition that Catholic teaching on life and dignity cannot be reduced to a single issue. They just don't care about abortion. They want to expand it to issues they care about. And he says even an issue as important as abortion. Now, don't fall for the rhetoric. He does not think abortion is an important issue. If he thought abortion was an important issue, he would not be recognizing lawfare pro-murder, lawfare-pro-murder Senator Dick Durbin, who has staunchly for the legal murder of infants all around the nation, if he thought it was an important issue. So it's not just that he wants to expand the rigors of what it means to be pro-life. He wants to replace the one really rigorous, or you'd say one of two really rigorous pro-life positions, which are you can't have abortions and you can't do euthanasia to old people. Those are the two pro-life positions. But the left wants to say, well, equally important are being pro-immigration and pro-poverty and pro-world peace. And it's just nonsense. So it's hot rhetoric when they say even as important an issue as abortion, clearly they don't care about abortion. So that's what Cupich said about a week ago today, in a September the 22nd statement. This story broke a little bit earlier. The real story that we're covering is here on Rules for Retrogrades is the response by now 8 American prelates. In the same statement, the Cardinal invoked the Vatican's call for bishops to reach out to and to engage in dialogue with Catholic politicians within their jurisdiction as a means of understanding the nature of their positions and their comprehension of Catholic teaching. But Archbishop Naumann, a past chairman of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, pro-life committee, said such a rationale makes no sense, which it doesn't. It makes zero sense at all. It makes as much sense as saying you care about abortion. It's an important issue, but you're going to honor this pro-legalized lawfare murder senator like Dick Durbin. Dialogue does not require giving awards to Catholic political leaders who disregard the most fundamental of human rights, the right to life of the unborn, he said in his statement. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is a pastorally correct, fatherly, loving chastisement of both Cupich and Dick Durbin by retired Archbishop Naumann, who emphasized that the USCCB, quote, has consistently identified the protection of unborn children and their mothers from the tragedy of abortion as the primary human rights issue of our time. Now, protecting mothers who are the murderers in the case of abortions from abortion is an insane politically motivated, slippery as an eel, ideological neologism of our time, right? To say we need to protect babies and their mothers from this act of murder by the mothers is absolutely hot jargon. And the USCCB said this. But at the very least, even though you're sliding the aggressor, the mothers, abortive mothers, into the victim's position, at least, I mean, this is where we are in the church in 2025. We have to at least say, well, they are still acknowledging that every abortion is an act of murder. They're just sort of intentionally getting a case of forgetfulness as to who the murderer is. But they are identifying each aborted baby as a victim. He explained that the Bishops' Conference takes this position because abortion, quote, attacks the life of the most innocent and vulnerable, not the mother, notably. Also, it harms the family and the most fundamental of human relationships by pitting the welfare of mothers against the lives of their own children. True, but mothers do this willingly. Mothers say, I want to keep going out to the club and hoeing around. I want to keep, my money, even though I hoed around. I want to keep living as if I don't have a child, even though I did that which biologically generated a child. So you can't really say that. It also destroys innocent life on a horrific magnitude, meaning it's like an unseen, massive, en masse Holocaust. And it harms the women involved physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, yes, abortion raises the rates of women cancer, and it makes them suicidal and depressed in the same way that becoming a murderer is at least psychologically bad for people. And if you engage in certain kinds of murder, I guess it could be physically bad for your health too. That's of secondary rank. When we talk about murderers in our midst, particularly widespread systematic murder like abortion, first thing we have to address, we have to separate the victims and the aggressors, the perpetrators of these murders, who are, yes, the perpetrators are working ill upon themselves as well. But until we get a hold of this thing, and we have, 3 years ago, we had Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. That was a major coup for the pro-life initiative, the main one overturning Roe. But until we get a better handle on it, at least in blue states, then we need to not yet turn our focus to helping the murderers themselves. We still need to be all hands on deck helping the innocent victims, the babies, from their murdering mothers. Okay, so that's not the kind of parsing or distinguishing that you should expect from even these 8 goodly-ish bishops who have the pluck, I guess if you want to call it the moral courage, to just say abortions and their political advocacy, meaning those like Dick Durbin, are evil. It's a murdersome lobby. That's the most brave they get, is, we have to defend the babies and their mothers. No, we really have to defend the babies from their mothers. I'm sick of the rhetoric. And, we don't talk about abortion all the time. It's not the main issue on the show, but I am sick of the feminism incipient in these claims about, we have to protect women and babies. No, we have to protect babies from these awful, awful women. And stop assuming, bizarrely, groundlessly, that women who commit abortion don't intend to. It's absolutely insane. It's insane. And it's very 90s. You're not really allowed to be anti-abortion in the 90s. I mean, of course, I always was, but you weren't really allowed to be be out and proud, lest you be shunned. But if you are, the most you can say is, well, it's bad for women. I don't care in the first place about the women who would harm themselves by seeking to become murderers any more than I care about a murderer running around on the street who would, who harms his spiritual life and his soteriological chances and the teleology for which he was put here on the planet. And in some cases, his body, he's taking great bodily risks to go become a murderer or a professional hitman. That's not my first concern. It's not really secondary or tertiary even. At best, it's quaternary. Yes, I want it to be not a temptation for murdersome mothers or murdersome men to commit any kind of murder. I want to help them, but that's a kind of fourth or fifth rank issue. First, second, third is helping babies from their murdersome mothers. Okay? It's that damn simple. Legalized abortion encourages the irresponsibility of men by absolving them from providing for the children they have fathered, as well as caring for their mothers, Archbishop Naumann said. Now, this is what Andrew Wilson calls, what about the men, though? I mean, a lot of men, and I've known some, I've personally talked women who are relative strangers to me off the ledge from having abortions on behalf of men that they knew, students of friends of mine in college, from having abortions. Men cannot stop these murdering women from having abortions.
And on the scale of things, like a man not taking care of his child,
horrible,
albeit as horrible as that is a much, 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 much smaller deal than a woman killing her own child. Like, right. Why do we keep doing this? Like, it's just like, it is, like you said, it's just like letting the women off the hook and just trying to pass the blame, because women lack accountability so badly. They for it to even make sense that it's a wrong, a man has to be at fault somewhere.
Somewhere at the bottom of the causal chain, I guess the top of the causal chain, somewhere at the top of the causal chain, for these aging boomer bishops, who I was trying to give a little credit to, right? Archbishop Naumann is trying to say, good job. You came down on Cupich and you came down on Durbin. But it's hard because they have to find a man at the top of the causal chain in order to allow themselves to condemn any woman. You see what I'm saying? Sure, some man had to impregnate this lady, but we're not just talking about outside of wedlock. Guess what the lawfare means, Your Excellency? What the lawfare equates to is a real fact pattern that is required by law in blue states is a married man can impregnate his wife consensually, no blame. And she can just say, you know what? I don't want the baby. And he can't do a damn thing about it in blue states. Did you know that? And this happens. This is real. And sometimes it's outside of wedlock. But I know, I talked a pair of young, like cholos, a cholo and a chola, on the phone at all hours of night. My friend who taught them in college, community college, off the ledge. And the young Mexican man, kind of gangbanger guy, was begging me and my professor friend to do what we could to keep his girlfriend, the chola, from killing the baby. So this fiction that every abortion has a man behind it, or even most abortion have a man behind it, is rubbish. We have to stop talking this way. Well, every abortion has a murdersome woman behind it, who is a grown adult, who, whether she was persuaded to or not, has convicted in her intellect and her will to become a murderer.
And it's in the origins of witchcraft.
Yeah, and this is in witchcraft.
This is origins of witchcraft. This is like one of the major things. It's like women attacking and murdering their own children with or without a man involved at all. Like, this is part of it.
Yeah, in What a Woman Is, if we're ever able to release that to you, we have a section on witchcraft. There is a compendium called the Malleus Maleficarum that's sort of the Catholic compendium from, I think, the 15th century on witchcraft. And it says there are really 7 or 8 venereal ways that witches have infected society. And the first wave feminists were really into these medieval witches. And one of those 7 or 8 ways that they infected society was through abortion, citing Lilith, who is sort of Adam's apocryphal first wife, who committed abortion and was credited with mating with demons and hating mankind. They hate children, the witches. And the witches, basically every one of the first wave feminists was a witch who had sat at a seance table. And they looked to medieval witches, who were the inventors of modern abortion, as heroes. And they looked to Lilith and they looked to Eve, but they looked more to Lilith from the Babylonian Talmud, Adam's apocryphal first wife, as the one who was their go-by, their example.
And that's what feminists do, right? They always try to pervert or destroy the marks of femininity, like the bra burning, back in the sexual revolution. Anything that symbolizes tangibly, like the essential femininity of a woman, a child, a bra, I guess, like matrimony, like virtue, sexual purity, those sorts of things. They just try to destroy them and perverse them. So it's obvious that abortion it stems from the evilness of women, first and foremost. Yeah. That's where it's rooted from. That's where it's rooted in, and that's where it stems from. And to talk about men in this, it's like, it's so perverse, and it's just totally missing the point. Yeah, completely misses the point.
It's out of order. It's out of speaking out of turn to tie a legal institution, an institution of well-established lawfare over the last 6 decades, where the lawfare precludes men from having a say in whether a baby lives or dies, continues to live or is killed in the womb by its mother, to continue to make this a male culpable issue is insanity. It's insanity. And you guys and kind of moderate Republicans, normie conservatives are just as implicit in my criticism here. It is insanity. Abortion is, we've been told abortion is a Jewish value. That's a big kind of sloganeering, every 2 years, every 4 years election kind of thing to say. Abortion is a very Jewish value. It's from the Babylonian Talmud, but it is a very, very effeminate value, because by definition, in the West, in Europe, in Western Europe, and in America, where it was forced to be legal for the first time ever in the 20th century, it's condemned in the Didache. But for the first time ever in the 20th century, it was forced to be legal, where women alone have this right to choose.
And some people are in chat are saying that abortion doctors are predominantly male, but you realize that the reason that those guys are in service or in they're serving a market is because women put them there. They would not exist unless women needed their services.
Yeah, I'll cite Pope Francis.
Stupid, like Brazilian butt lips I'm seeing everywhere. It's like, it's so gross. It's like, yeah, there are some freaky weirdo doctors that are doing like mutilating women's bodies like that because retarded women are like asking for these services. Same thing with abortion doctors. It's like, they might all be male. They're just needing, or they're just filling a service that women are asking for. So
Pope Francis made this very clear. I don't think it's very abstract at all. It's quite obvious. The principle in any murder, I mean, I've studied the criminal law, I have a law degree, is the woman, the person who goes to a hitman, goes to the dark web or whatever and contracts a hitman to kill someone. So you are the principal in that murder case. The hitman is a co-conspirator, the one that actually goes in his. Pope Francis has said the doctor is a hitman who's being conscripted, not the ultimate efficient or formal cause of the murder, maybe the material cause of the murder, but the one driving the murder is the principal, right? Who's the one driving the murder in every single abortion murder? And it's a worse murder than killing a stranger because you owe a higher duty, as Thomas Aquinas makes clear in the Summa. The mother. It doesn't matter if originally she was pro-life and then maybe a bad influence on her, whether it was a girl or a guy, convinced her in her intellect and will to become pro-abortion and to abort her kid. If that should come to pass, that she becomes convicted one way or another, and I'm talking anyone who's post-pubescent, has made their first confession, right? An 8-year-old is responsible for everything they do. An 8-year-old, we believe as Catholics, can be sent to hell. So if we're talking about, what about the 14-year-olds? That's 6 years past attaining your moral majority. People are adults soteriologically being sent to heaven or hell at about 8. Whenever you make your first confession, boom, it's done. So don't tell me, oh, they're 14, 15, 16. They're twice as old as what you have to be morally culpable. So 14, 15, 16, every abortion ever procured legally since before Roe versus Wade has exactly one female murderer as the principal. And every doctor is the co-conspirator during the fact. And sometimes there are co-conspirators behind the scenes, which might be men or other women, mothers, fathers, friends. They might be men, they might be women, but that's a might. What I can say with certitude is that every single abortion procured legally between Roe and Dobbs for about 60 years was procured with one principal murderer, the mother. The hitman's the co-conspirator during the fact. And there might be more co-conspirators, but that, that's not how it works. It's out of order to talk about this as a male thing. Okay? This is too 90s-ish, too early 2000s to continue talking about the way the boomers talked about it during the 90s. That's done. The Overton window is shifting back to the right. People are getting hip on the woman question, feminism, on the JQ question, Israel. They're getting hip on the race question. There's just the time of the boomers is over. And we don't talk about this stuff like this anymore. We just changed Roe versus Wade to Dobbs. We overturned it.
So we have a challenge in chat. El Cid said, St. Alphonsus did say that women caught in abortion should be dealt a degree of mercy. Obviously, serial cases are different. They're not different at all.
No.
Serial cases aren't different at all morally. That just doesn't make any sense.
How? What do you mean serial?
Like women who go back for multiple abortions. So you're saying there's a difference between killing one child and 2 children?
Yeah. No, each
that's nonsensical.
That's against action theory, Thomistic action theory. Any individual act is a failure of the first principle of practical reason. Do the good, avoid evil. If your will and your intellect were inclined to do it, right? We're not talking about, this liberal sense of duress that most of you are willing to apply to women, but no one else. Well, but someone convinced them, it doesn't matter. If you convince your friend, hey man, why are you working this wage job? Go knock off a couple of banks with me. We'll be good for life. I might be convincing my friend. He might not have been a bank robber otherwise. But if I convince him and he goes and tries to knock off a couple banks, he is fully morally culpable.
And
that's how action theory works, my friend. That, you can talk about all this squish philosophy if you want, but this is how action theory works. It's Thomism.
And Catholics seem to have a really hard time realizing that not everything a saint says or does is correct. St. Alphonsus, if he said this, is wrong. He's wrong. That is not true. That is completely false, morally speaking. He's not Jesus Christ. So saints can make mistakes, and they oftentimes did, and did many, many mistakes and said lots of wrong things.
Well, but
this is not correct.
The saint who really doesn't make moral reasoning errors is Aquinas. Okay. And action theory based on Aristotelism can always be taken to the bank. Now, I'm not saying that Alphonsus is even strictly speaking wrong here. They can, accord them mercy. Hopefully the Lord will accord all murderers mercy. I'm not against mercy, but at law, the state doesn't bear the sword idly. Not in vain does the state bear the sword. The most Christian thing you can do is to have a fairer punishment for all first-degree murders. Abortion by these women of their firstborn is more first-degree than killing a stranger in cold blood. It's killing your own in cold blood, a worse sin. And I'm uniformly for the death penalty for all first-degree murder. And it's unjust that it depends on what state you live in and how public the murder was and what the public outcry requires. This is, when someone commits first-degree murder, kill them and pray for them. Under the legal, licit prerogative of the state that Aquinas, St. Augustine, St. Ambrose, St. Paul in the Bible, Jesus of Nazareth, when he's talking to Pontius Pilate, he says, this power to put me to death comes to you who have the prerogative of the state as a political leader. That comes to you from my Father. Jesus says this in John's Gospel. So I know I'm making it into a whole death penalty thing. I want to get back to the 8 prelates, but the point is you guys are going to have to stop reasoning like 90s, MTV 90s women dunces on abortion. The feminism is evaporating from at least the political right wing. It's going bye-bye. Yeah. And it's been going bye-bye for about 5 years. And some other really, really idiotic leftisms that somehow rode comfortably aboard the host organism of the right wing during the 90s and early 2000s are going bye-bye too. And because feminism is leaving the right wing entirely, hope to see it evanesce is, as much between now and 2 years as it has from 2 years ago to now. It's about half gone from conservatism. We're not going to be nice anymore about murdering mothers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the USCCB, the whole thing is a digression, admittedly, but the USCCB, I'm saying, is being adhered to in only the loosest terms by these 8 prelates. I'm going to read the 8 again. In their, obvious condemnation of Cupich / Durbin, but it's not like a high standard. This is the last paragraph of the NC Register article. To date, 8 active diocesan ordinaries in the U.S. have publicly disagreed with Cupich's move to honor Durbin. Springfield Bishop Thomas Paprocki was the first to voice his opposition. This is, I believe, the ordinary of Durbin. Since then, the following prelates have issued statements opposing the honor and calling for Cardinal Cupich to reconsider his decision. Number 2, Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Number 3, Bishop James Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska. Number 4, Bishop James Wall of Gallup, New Mexico. Number 5, Bishop David Ricken of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Number 6, Bishop Carl Kemme of Wichita, Kansas. Number 7, Bishop James Johnston of St. Joseph, Kansas City, Missouri. And number 8, Bishop Michael Olson of Fort Worth, Texas. I'd say 5 or 6 of those are regulars for upholding the bare minimum standards articulated and promulgated by the USCCB on issues like this, as against their correlating politicians. But it's not much of a standard, because listen to that squish language. That's why I got into that whole side screed about condemning men for abortion instead of condemning women for abortion, which is as idiotic as it can get, given what the lawfare requires, that men have no say if a woman wants to have an abortion. So that's why I went into that whole thing. Now, I'm going to read for you what the basics of what each of these prelates said, because some of them are better than others. So 8 prelates loosely or more strictly condemned Cardinal Cupich and Dick Durbin. Here's what Paprocki said. He's pretty good. I was shocked to learn that Archdiocese of Chicago plans to honor Senator Richard Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Paprocki argues that given Durbin's long, consistent record of supporting legal abortion, including opposing legislation to protect children who survive failed abortions, the award risks causing grave scandal, quote, confusing the faithful about the church's unequivocal teaching on the sanctity of human life. Paprocki also said Durbin, quote, should not be celebrated by the church, end quote, and that honoring him in this way contradicts church moral doctrine, sows confusion about abortion, and damages the integrity of Catholic witness in public life. He also invoked the policy of the Archdiocese of Chicago, which he says forbids giving honors to individuals whose public stances oppose fundamental moral principles of the church. This is a good kind of add-on. So thank you, Bishop Paprocki, consistently one of our best American ordinaries. Now, another one of our more consistent American ordinaries is San Francisco's own Cordileone, Archbishop Cordileone. He says he, quote, stands in solidarity with Bishop Thomas Paprocki in urging Cardinal Cupich to reconsider giving Senator Durbin a Lifetime Achievement Award, given his long record of supporting legal abortion. Thank you, Your Excellency. Cordileone said that Paprocki is, quote, correct that both clarity and unity are at risk. I would say they're not at risk. They're vitiated. They're vituperated here. Cordileone has framed the decision as one that could lead to scandal and confusion among the faithful, especially concerning the church's teaching on life. Now we'll go to Bishop David Ricken of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Ricken tweeted out, the Archdiocese of Chicago's plan to give Durbin a Catholic Lifetime Achievement Award is untenable. Sort of the basic statement of fact here. He said, quote, works of justice and protecting life are not mutually exclusive, but must be inclusive. So, like, if you want to do this other social justice crap, fine. But you can't say we're doing this instead of standing up for life. He goes on, abortion violates thou shalt not kill. I join Bishop Paprocki and others in urging Cupich to retract this award. Okay, so David Ricken of Green Bay, Wisconsin, thank you, Your Excellency there. Too. He's a little bit more matter of fact. James Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska said he was, quote, shocked and bewildered, end quote, upon learning about the award plan. He stated that Durbin's actions, quote, go against the fundamental moral principles of the Catholic Church. Thank you, Your Excellency, Bishop Conley. He expressed hope that, quote, there is still time to reconsider the decision and that the scandal it will likely cause the faithful be avoided. Thank you, Bishop Conley. Now here's Bishop James Wall of Gallup, New Mexico. Brief statement here. He posted support for Paprocki's decision, quoting Evangelium Vitae by John Paul II on the gift of life, a little less strong. I think I've already read for you what Bishop Naumann said. I'll repeat it. He called the proposed honoring a source of scandal, referred to it as a pastoral neglect. I already read that. He said that giving an award to a Catholic political leader who disregards a fundamental human right, the right to life of the unborn, does not make sense as, quote, dialogue, which it doesn't. Additional bishops like Carl Kemme of Wichita or Michael Olson of Fort Worth, James Johnston of St. Joseph, Kansas City, reported in some articles as among those who have spoken out, but I had a tougher time finding the main sources for specifically what they said. You know, you get the point here. We're supposed to be all pumped that like 8 USCCB bishops are like, don't kill babies. And that's good. I mean, it's good that there are 8 USCCB bishops out of how many? Hundreds? A couple hundred? Who know about blue states' widespread policy to kill as many babies as women want to kill to satisfy that female feminist modern day bloodlust. And 8 of them speak out. And most of the ones who speak out do so in a way that is satisfactory, I guess, but still connives, still finagles to somehow invest and involve men in this moral shame. And it's silly. It's a female sin. It's a Jewish value and a female sin, as we're told publicly all the time. Now, who stood most recently in Cupich's shoes? Who, as a fellow Chicagoan, who was in this line of bishops that he himself is referred to, Cupich and Bernardin, and of course Prevost, our current pope. I haven't seen anything as of this morning. I didn't see anything with him speaking out on Cupich. And I know Cupich was a big fan of Prevost becoming pope. But has Pope Leo said anything about Dick Durbin and his Lifetime Achievement Award by Cupich? I'm shepherdizing right now and double checking it right now. But no, I'm not seeing a single statement. People are saying he should accept Cupich's retirement, which Francis did not. Here's all the bishops, Bishop Paprocki. All I can find, if you can find it and I can't, then let me know. I want to correct myself. I'd love it if our Pope, who is close to Cupich, who is in Cupich's ear, Cupich was one of his kingmakers. He's spoken of himself as being in a direct lineage from Bernardin Cupich himself. If he would speak out here, to speak truth to power. You know what's harder than speaking truth to power sometimes? Speaking truth to your own friends who are doing the wrong thing. And there's no evidence that Pope Leo has done any of this unless you find some. Maybe I'm always missing research. Here's Cupich's statement. This is from September 22nd. On the Keep Hope Alive Immigration Ministry fundraiser. Recently, some have criticized the decision of the Archdiocese of Chicago to recognize Senator Dick Durbin at our annual fundraiser for our immigration ministry, Keep Hope Alive. Not for babies. Senator Durbin informed me some years ago that he had purchased a condo in Chicago, registered in a parish of the Archdiocese, and considers me to be his bishop. Accordingly, says Cupich, I have remained faithful to the May 2021 instructions of the then Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, advising bishops to, quote, reach out to and engage in dialogue with Catholic politicians within their jurisdictions as a means of understanding the nature of their positions and their comprehension of Catholic teaching, end quote. At the heart of the consistent ethic of life, I already read this part, is the recognition that Catholic teaching on life and dignity cannot be reduced to a single issue, even an issue as important as abortion. I think I ended here. I'll go a little further. The annual celebration of immigrants, Keep Hope Alive, will recognize all the critically important contributions Senator Dick has taken to advance Catholic social teaching in the areas of immigration, the care of the poor, Laudato Si, and world peace. They've just created an alternate agenda by which they can say, well, these are life issues, right? Seamless garment. They're not life issues. They just called non-life issues life issues, and they're saying, we're doing this instead of the real life issues. That's all seamless garment has been, and guess who made it up? Who do you think made it up? The seamless garment. Bernardin. This is a bad look for the Pope, ladies and germs. Pope Leo XIV says there's a direct line from Cardinal Bernardin, who is the author of the seamless garment. He made this shit up, that caring for immigrants, illegal immigrants who broke our laws, letting them continue to break our laws, is the same thing as preventing unborn babies from being slaughtered by murdersome mothers. Guess who made this up? Bernardin. In Chicago, Cupich stood in his shoes. Prevost stood in his shoes. And this Pope won't say boo to either of these guys that he views as friends. Evidently, he views as fellow travelers. He won't say boo because evidently he believes in the consistent ethic of life, which is not an ethic of life. It is an ethic of death. The recognition of his defense of immigrants at this moment, says Cupich, when they are subjected to terror and harm, which is nonsense, is not something to be regretted, but a reflection that the Lord stands profoundly with both immigrants who are in danger and those who work to protect them. So this is no kind of defense at all. It's like damning with faint praise. This is damning oneself with a faint, barely existent justification for one's murdersome actions. This is what Cupich said in defense of why he's honoring with a Lifetime Achievement Award a blood-drenched senator who's Catholic, Dick Durbin, from his diocese, from the very archdiocese where this made-up pro-abortion ethic of death called the seamless garment was fabricated. And that we have a sitting pope who has written, I've covered it on this show, about how he is in a direct lineage from Bernardin, the author of the seamless garment, to Cupich, to himself. And that's why I would be surprised, whether by today or a week from today, if you should hear from Pope Leo XIV condemning Cupich or Durbin or Bernardin. Look it up. Bernardin is the author of The Seamless Garment, and it is deuced. It is devilish. So we heard from 8 American prelates. The most important American prelate we could possibly hear from, the Holy Father, we have not heard from, as far as I can tell, and we will not hear from, as far as I can predict. Heaven help us. God be with us. God be with the unborn in blue states. Get out of your blue state. Get to a red state where you're not politically compliant with abortion. If you live in a blue state, here's the other thing. This is another reason to get to a red state. When we defederalized the banning of abortion with Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, thank you very much, Mississippi, 3 summers ago, when we did that, what we did is now we split the country into very real morally parsed abortion terms, blue and red. Red's the opposite of blood-stained states. Red states are abortion's completely illegal. Blue states are the bloody ones. You're part of the political process willingly because of the comity clause in the U.S. Constitution. When you continue to subsist, to elect to be in a blue state, you're continuing to be in a state which it's a states' rights issue. The states, under the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, decide all moral issues, and under subsidiarity. You're continuing to be part of a political process which is pro-abortion if you continue to live in a blue state. If you move to a red state, then you're literally and legally, I don't mean like Pontius Pilate, I mean in an effective moral move, gambit. You are washing your hands of the political process, which is pro-abortion, and you're moving to a new republic, which for 3 years has dusted itself off of the blood of the unborn. That's what you do when you move to a red state. That is the realest, most vividly instantiated set of terms I can use to explain to you, if you don't yet get it, why you need to be in a red state. Go to realestateforlife.org and get to a pro-life state where you're no longer partly accountable for the political process the way you are. I don't care if you're a Republican. If you're in a blue state, it doesn't matter how pro-life you are. You're part of a political process which is compliant with abortion. Think about it that way. Learn to think about the actual Republican, lowercase r, system of government we actually have. Quit thinking like a LARP. Oh, well, if we had a king, he would just make it all illegal. We don't. In our Republican form of government, it's not a democratic form of government. It's not an aristocratic form of government. It's not an oligarchic form of government. It's not a tyrannical form of government or a monarchical form of government. It is a Republican form of government, and you are morally accountable under both the system of government and the moral natural law, according to Pope Pius XI in Quadragesimo Anno. You're accountable to that extent for what's going on in your republic. And there's nothing you could really do before 2022 because it was illegal under the Supreme Court for any of the 50 states not to allow abortion. But 3 years ago, that all changed. We did away with Roe. So now if you're in a red state, you're just like, there's no abortion in your entire red land, red republic, red state. That's the best reason morally to get out of a blue state.
We have some super chats. And are you going to do a local show today, a locals only show after this?
Yeah, we'll do a quick local show. Sure.
Okay, so Pondon sent $50. Cardinal Francis George
big local chat.
Was a respite between Cardinal Bernardin and Cupich. He was a good bishop and cardinal. He made them put kneelers back into is it Mundelein Seminary, and the liberal clergy called him Francis the Corrector, Cardinal Francis George.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what's interesting there? The reason I skipped over Cardinal George, who's a complex figure, but definitely to the right of the other three people that have been mentioned, including the current Pope, is that when he first became, or was it right before he became Pope, Cardinal Prevost did not mention himself in line with Cardinal George. He said Bernardin Cupich himself. What does that tell you? Next super chat, please.
Somebody is asking, where is Wally?
Where is Wally? Still being bandied about with a large distributor. So you can probably guess the stakes of the game. We, with our books, The Case for Patriarchy, Ask Your Husband, have been a major source of change on the political far right wing, making feminism one of the hot topics of the last 3 years. You know this to be true. Mainly through our friendships with larger channels and our influence there. And part of that influence has been, you know what's more influential than a book? In a basically illiterate public is a documentary. And, you know, if we could have gotten Daily Wire to distribute this thing, it would have been huge because they're big. But we have equally large channels that are interested in maybe distributing it. So we'll see. We're close to finding out one way or the other. If you know, no large channel wants to distribute it, I'll just put it out on my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel or something. And then, you know, you won't have to whatever, but it'll be a far more effective, save a lot more spiritual lives, save a lot more marriages if we can get it through one of these big channels. And it's kind of evergreen. Feminism hasn't gone away yet. We've moved the yardsticks over the last 3, 4, 5 years here through a lot of vigorous effort behind the scenes. We have, trust me. And you've seen some of the fruits of that, but it'll be a lot more if we can get this thing distributed the way we hope to. Thanks for the super chat. Any others? Okay, well, thanks. You know, sorry for the screed, but you probably found it useful. These 8 prelates who've spoken out against Cupich/Durbin, they're not speaking out enough. And they're not doing so in the strictly speaking correct terms, but we still have to thank them for their witness on behalf of the babies. We just need to get them to identify who really is at fault for abortion. And it's not a hard thing. The law makes it perfectly clear. A man cannot decide what happens to his baby. Only the woman can decide what happens to her baby because it's her body. Under this culture of death, it's considered part of her body. So this literally, that means it's a 1-to-1. Every time a baby is aborted, it is a woman who has decided it because it's part of her body. Not true, but it's part of the lawfare, part of the legal lie. God bless us all. Hopefully God will continue to bless the United States, even though we have this great sin of abortion under our pelt for centuries now. God bless you. Deus Volt.